Welcome to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel. Today we're going deep on this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's been pretty popular lately in the self-help world.
Yeah, it really has.
I think we all have goals, right? But sometimes, it's hard to get there. And Clear gives us this framework. It's really insightful.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly simple. He talks about how these tiny little changes that you make consistently, they can make a huge difference over time. So if you're trying to I don't know, maybe you want to get more productive or be healthier or just understand why you do the things you do every day.
Right.
This is the episode for you. You'll learn how to break those bad habits and build good ones. So stick around.
Atomic Habits is fascinating because it's not just tips and tricks.
Yeah.
Clear really dives into the psychology of our actions. So it's not just about achieving something, it's about who you become.
Right. You're becoming that person who can achieve those goals.
Yeah.
And he talks about this thing, it's called the plateau of latent potential. It's basically this hidden zone where you're working hard, but you're not seeing those results right away.
Yeah, it can be so frustrating.
So how do you stay motivated when it feels like you're not making any progress?
Well, he uses this great analogy of an ice cube. So you know how you're heating an ice cube and for a while, nothing seems to be happening, but then suddenly it just starts melting like crazy?
Oh, I see.
Habits are kind of like that. You put in the work consistently. It may not be visible immediately, but you're setting the stage for big change. And then, bam, you have this breakthrough and all that effort just, pays off.
Okay, so be patient.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
Got it. But how do those small changes turn into, real transformation?
That's where those 4 stages of habit formation come in. Cue, craving, response, and reward. Clear explains why understanding those stages is key to actually building better habits. So every habit, doesn't matter if it's good or bad, follows those 4 steps. First, you have the cue. That's what triggers the habit.
Okay.
It could be, the time of day or where you are or even just how you're feeling. Then there's the craving. That's like the fuel behind the habit, the desire you have for a specific outcome. The response is the habit itself, like the action you take. And finally, the reward. That's the satisfaction you get from doing the habit, which makes you want to do it again.
So it's like a chain reaction. Each stage leads to the next, right?
Yeah, exactly. But if one of those stages is missing or it's weak, the habit might not stick. So if we want to build strong habits, each stage needs to be clear and strong.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, Clear has some strategies. For example, to make the cue more obvious, you could put visual reminders around or arrange things in your environment in a certain way.
I see.
To make the craving stronger, you could try to see the habit in a more positive light, make it more appealing. And to make sure the reward is satisfying, you could track your progress, maybe even celebrate your wins.
So we're basically tricking our own brains to like good habits more and dislike bad ones.
Yeah, kinda.
That's pretty cool. And he talks a lot about making habits attractive.
Yeah.
What does he mean by that?
So one thing is this thing called temptation bundling. You basically link an action you have to do with something you want to do. Like, let's say you love listening to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel.
Who doesn't?
But you also know you should be working out more.
Guilty as charged.
So what you could do is only allow yourself to listen to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel while you're working out.
Oh, I get it.
You're connecting something fun with something you might not enjoy as much, making the whole thing better.
That's actually a really good idea. It's like, rewarding yourself while being productive.
Yeah.
But he doesn't just talk about external rewards, right?
No, he also talks about the anticipation of the reward, that little hit of dopamine. That's a big motivator. He tells the story about the Polgar sisters. They're these amazing chess players. Their dad was convinced anyone could become a genius with the right environment and training.
Wow.
So he basically built their lives around chess, made it the best, most rewarding thing in their world. And you know what? All 3 sisters became world-class chess players. It just shows how environment can really shape our habits.
That's so interesting. It's not just about, willpower. It's about building the right environment.
Exactly.
And that leads us to another big idea in Atomic Habits, the power of environment design. Our environment can either help or hurt us when we're trying to build good habits.
Yeah, remember those stickers they put in the urinals at the airport?
Oh yeah, I remember reading about that.
Just that simple change, that visual cue, led to way less mess and less cleaning costs. It's a great example of how even small changes in our surroundings can influence our behavior.
It's almost like subliminal messaging.
Kind of. And then there's this study about Vietnam War veterans who were addicted to heroin. When they came home, a lot of them didn't relapse, which is surprising, right?
Yeah, why was that?
It was because their environment changed completely. They were away from the cues and triggers that were associated with drug use.
Wow, so sometimes changing your surroundings is more effective than just trying to use willpower.
Exactly. And it's not just about removing the bad stuff. It's also about making good habits easier to do. Like, if you want to start exercising regularly, having your workout clothes ready to go or setting up your workout space ahead of time can make a huge difference.
That makes sense.
It's all about reducing that initial resistance, that feeling of, ugh, I don't want to do this.
And that's where his 2-minute rule comes in handy, right? Break it down into something so small, so easy that it takes less than 2 minutes.
Exactly.
Instead of planning an hour-long workout, just start with 5 minutes of stretching.
Oh.
And once you've started, you're much more likely to keep going.
It's all about that first step. So we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive into atomic habits. We've looked at the power of small changes, the 4 stages of habit formation, making those good habits attractive, and the importance of designing the right environment.
We sure have.
And in the next part, we'll go even deeper into clear strategies. We'll see how to make good habits easy and satisfying, and how to use accountability to stay on track. Stay tuned.
And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the Great Indian AI podcast channel for more insightful content. We'll be back soon with more from Atomic Habits.
Welcome back to the Great Indian AI podcast channel. In part 1, we explored how habits work, how small changes can add up, and how our environment shapes our habits.
One thing that really stuck with me was the idea that our habits are like votes for the person we want to become.
Right. It's not just about reaching a goal, it's about who you are.
Yeah, exactly. Like instead of saying, I want to lose weight, you'd say, I'm the kind of person who prioritizes their health.
That's a great example. And Claire talks more about the role of dopamine in forming habits, especially anticipation.
Anticipation?
Yeah, it's not just the reward itself, it's the looking forward to it that motivates us. That dopamine rush.
Like on the Great Indian AI podcast channel, we did an episode about visualization.
Right.
You know, picturing yourself achieving a goal. It's like your brain releases dopamine, so you're more motivated to actually do it.
Exactly. And that's why temptation bundling works so well.
Because you're linking something you have to do with something you enjoy.
Yes. You're using that anticipation to drive yourself.
It's like tricking your brain to work for you.
Exactly. And Clear also talks about how we can change our thinking about those tasks we don't like.
Ooh, how do we do that?
It's all about shifting your perspective. Like, instead of saying, ugh, I have to go to the gym, you say, I get to go to the gym. It sounds silly, but it frames it as an opportunity, not a chore.
It's choosing to focus on the positive, even if it's something you're not crazy about. And, you know, there are always going to be things we don't love doing in our routine.
That's true.
But if you can find a way to appreciate them, or at least see them differently, it makes a big difference.
It's all about having a mindset of gratitude, even for the ordinary things. And that brings us to a larger point, the role of mindset in building habits.
Okay.
Clear says your beliefs and attitudes can make or break your success in changing.
He wants us to have a growth mindset.
Exactly. Believe that you can learn and improve over time. See challenges as chances to grow.
Now let's talk about breaking bad habits. Nobody likes that part.
Right, but Claire has a different take on it. He says, make those bad habits unattractive.
Oh, take the fun out of them.
Yeah, make them less appealing so you're less likely to do them.
Okay. And to do that, you have to understand why you have those bad habits in the first place.
Right. Once you know the root cause, you can address it.
Like, Clear gives some examples. If you're always snacking on junk food, it might not just be because you like the taste. It could be stress, boredom, loneliness, maybe even low self-esteem.
It's about figuring out what's really going on.
So deal with those underlying issues in a healthy way, and you'll weaken the grip of the bad habit.
Exactly. It's not about just willpower. It's about understanding yourself and finding better ways to cope.
That's what makes Atomic Habits so great.
Yeah.
It's more than just tips and tricks. It's about the psychology behind what we do.
It's about understanding how our environment, our emotions, and our habits all connect.
Once you get that, you can be more intentional about the habits you're building.
Because every action, every choice you make shapes who you are.
It all goes back to that idea. Our habits are votes for the type of person we want to be.
Exactly. And as we continue our deep dive into atomic habits, we'll talk about how to make good habits easier and more satisfying, how to stay on track, and the link between habits and happiness.
Stay tuned to the Great Indian AI podcast channel for the final part of our exploration of atomic habits. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel for more insightful content. We'll be back soon with more from Atomic Habits. Thanks, go away now. Welcome back to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel for the final part of our deep dive into atomic habits. In the previous parts, we talked about how habits work, how small changes can make a big difference, and how our surroundings play a role. We even got into the psychology behind it all, like how our habits shape who we are. But as we were prepping for this deep dive on atomic habits for the Great Indian AI Podcast channel, something hit me. It's not just about knowing how to build habits, it's about picking the right ones.
That's so important. You don't want to just adopt any good habit you hear about. It's about choosing habits that fit your values, strengths, and what you want to achieve.
Right, like you wouldn't just build a house without a plan, right? You need a blueprint.
Exactly. Building a life is the same way. You need the right materials, the right habits to build a strong foundation for the life you want. And that's where Clear's idea of the explore-exploit trade-off comes in.
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
In the beginning, you need to explore, try out different habits, see what clicks for you. It's like trying on clothes or tasting different foods,
I get it.
But then as you learn what works, you shift to exploiting, focusing on those habits that give you the best results.
So you experiment first and then focus on what works best.
Exactly. And another thing is knowing yourself, your personality. Clear talks about how our genes can affect our habits. Some people love routine, others need more flexibility. Recognizing that helps you pick habits that will stick.
So play to your strengths.
Yes. He uses Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy, as an example.
Yeah.
Adams wasn't the best artist or the funniest writer, but he was good at both. And by combining those skills, he created something really successful.
You don't have to be the best at everything. You just have to find your own mix of talents and passions.
That's a great way to put it.
Now let's talk about motivation. You found the right habits, but how do you keep going when it gets tough?
Clear is honest about this. Even super successful people get bored, frustrated, or unmotivated sometimes. It's not about always feeling inspired, it's about having a system that helps you show up even when you don't want to.
So like a routine that keeps you on track.
Yeah. Think about those automatic savings plans. You don't have to think about saving, it just happens.
You're setting yourself up for success without having to rely on willpower all the time.
Right. And Clear also talks about reflection and review. You know how top athletes or musicians use it to improve?
Yeah.
It's about taking a step back, seeing the big picture, and finding ways to get better. We can all do that. By looking at our habits, seeing what's working, we can adjust and stay on track.
It's like a feedback loop.
Exactly. Now here's the really interesting part. The connection between habits and happiness.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Clear says happiness isn't something you chase directly. It comes from working towards meaningful goals and building good habits.
It's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah. It's about finding joy in the process, not just the end result. He talks about desire and pleasure and how real satisfaction comes from taking action.
Doing something, making progress.
Exactly. He quotes Viktor Frankl, who said, "Happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue." It's about living your values.
And all those little habits we build, all those choices, they can lead us to a life that's really fulfilling.
Atomic Habits is more than just self-improvement. It's a guide to living a more intentional life. A life where you're in control and your habits are building a better future.
Exploring atomic habits here on the Great Indian AI Podcast channel has been amazing. We've learned so much about how small changes can lead to big results, how to pick the right habits, and how much power our daily actions have.
Thank you for joining us on the Great Indian AI Podcast channel.
Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel for more insightful content. Until next time.